Hey guys, welcome to another ride in the struggle bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Today's bus ride is against an 11k on OGS who plays very strong for his rank. He clearly enjoys fighting and he's very good at it. So it ended up being a very interesting game. You guys might notice that the video looks a little bit different. We've got a green screen, which is pretty cool, and I intend on doing some pretty fun things with that. It'll just take me a little bit to get that set up. Either way, as per always, I'd like to thank our opponent for playing us today. I'd like to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'd like to thank my patrons for supporting the videos. With that said, let's get into the game. Okay, let's go. We are playing as white against an 11k on OGS. We're going to be following our basic rules, which we all know and love at this point. Going to be going for corners and then the sides and then the center. We're going to be balancing our third and fourth line stones. Here we will just attach underneath. This is the most straightforward variation, and we pull back. They'll usually connect, and then we can jump here, and this does a good job of securing the corner, and he gets a little bit of the side. And we're going to do something similar over here. We're going to approach low on this stone, mixed up a little bit as opposed to doing the normal high approach that we like to do. And he's going to pincer, which, as I've mentioned in other videos, is, complicates things a little bit. In this case, we're just going to keep it real simple, and we're going to shoulder hit this stone. You can jump out, you can shoulder hit. In this case, I am going to shoulder hit this. This is a method of keeping him low while we build strength on the outside to then be able to attack this stone. And that's a little more than the basics goes over, but again, we have to make sure that we handle pincers properly as well. And so he extends, we will extend. And then he attaches here. We need to do something to this. If we extend here, we have to see if this cut is okay, and it looks okay. So we're just going to extend here. So now that he's descended, we do have to worry about this cut. If he cuts and we connect here, he just extends and these two stones die. So we are going to play here, protect our cut, and then see what he's going to do. He's going to push here. We are going to push one more time because we don't want to get hit on the head of 3. We don't want the Hane at the head of 3. And he's now going to strengthen this. So he's playing this fairly well because we did want to look at going after this stone. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a stone on this side between us and keep him between us and the strong group. So we're just going to play here, aiming to break up the side so it doesn't turn too big. He attaches, we will just Hane. Our two normal responses for when we get attached to is to either Hane or connect. He extends, and we will extend as well. And now he's going to peep us. And this is a peep that needs to be answered, so we will just answer it. And now he blocks this way. He's playing very, very well. I'm surprised to see a lot of the moves that he's playing here. We can look at this push and cut, but I think we want a little more strength before we do that. So I'm going to take this turn first. And now we can look at this push and cut. But even so, I want a little more strength. So I'm going to jump out first. This now really turns this cut on, and so that's what I'm going to be looking for, and he needs to be considering protecting that cut. Now that he hasn't, we're going to push through. And we are going to cut. And this is going to be tough for him to save these 3 stones as well as these 3. He's probably going to have to pick one or the other. And this is the kind of fight that we want with a strong wall here. And so now we're going to extend this way, which is going to put a lot of pressure on these 3 stones. And we're going to have this nice fight against this wall. And so we're going to extend one more time. And now we are going to peep. And Hane, his group. And we can play this aggressively because of how strong our wall is here. And we need to be mindful of this cut. So we are going to play this shape move. And now he's going after these weak stones. And we're going to take this Hane. If we extended, we were just going towards his stones, which we really don't want to do. And so now I'm going to play this. And this is getting a little complicated. This is getting to be some very tactical fighting here. But this threatens to take this cut, and it also fully connects up these two stones, these two groups with a bamboo joint. And so he threatened the cut. He didn't block, and so now we're going to take the cut. But some aggressive play from our friend, and some very solid aggressive play from our friend. And this might look really bad for black, but if he does something as simple as laddering this stone right now, he gets a very large corner. Unfortunately, it did come at the cost of this group, but this group still isn't 100% dead yet, though if we do kill these 3 stones, we'll be strong enough to be able to handle that. But honestly, not a terrible outcome. Black has a pretty big corner here. He's going to have a really big corner here and a pretty large side. So here, it's looking like he wants to peep this, but we can Atari this, and if he peeps, we can go this way. So we're just going to Atari this group to make sure that we are fully alive and connected. So this captures these 3 stones. And if he does peep, we can push up to 014 because this group will be alive by the fact of capturing these 3 stones. So he extends that way. And I'm just going to play here to cleanly capture this group and connect up and make sure that we are okay there because we are safe here. And if this group ends up getting out, this group becomes a problem for us, this group becomes a problem for us. So this is just a nice solid play. And he makes a pretty large move here too, right? Because we have this stone that he can ladder. And so he's looking to get this entire area, which is very large. Later in the game, we can look at his shoulder hits at L4 to reduce this, but we have to go back to our rules, and our rules say to play in the corners, then the sides, then the center. And we still have a corner that's wide open. There are very few stones over here. And so we are going to play right here to try to grow this corner. And he approaches us, but he approaches us high, which is interesting because there isn't a great follow-up to this stone as if he had played F17. If he played F17 and we ignore it, then he could play D18. But if we ignore this, I'm not so sure where he plays. We will protect the corner, though, just to ensure that we get this, and this stone's kind of floating in the middle of nowhere now. He's going to peep. We are going to block. And he's probably going to try to extend, but he's already undercut with D18, so at any point in time we can play something like a monkey jump at G19 to reduce that, and at any point in time we can play this turn, which I'm going to play right now, to make it so this stone can't connect up with this group easily. So this group's just kind of floating there for the time being. Once he plays E18, he'll have a pretty okay base, but it came at a cost. And so now we're just going to descend. He really needed to block this. So talking about, trying to avoid early first and second line moves, we are getting to the point in the game where large second line moves are going to be playable. And N18 is most assuredly a very large second line move because it threatens to kill this corner. And so he needs to stop us from coming in, else this corner could die on him. And so he does block. And now this group is undercut on both sides. And so it's going to be really hard for him to develop this. So now we can start focusing on the center, or if there are big moves on the side that we care about. And I mentioned this shoulder hit earlier, and it's what I'm going to play. And the reason I'm going to play it is it serves as a ladder breaker for this stone and as a means of keeping him low. And so it's a good reduction move that does a few things for us. And he plays here. And unfortunately, this is a very well-known bad shape, bad exchange, because we can just play right here and immediately split him. And so looking at cuts, right, we need to make sure that we are protecting our cuts and looking at cuts that our opponents give us. We are just going to play this, which, again, keeps him separated. And, this can turn into a fight again because we're kind of a floating group, but we're near a strong group of ours. He has a very weak stone here, and so we can descend again. And again, this is another large second line move. But now we can get out or we can come around. So here it looks like he's looking to connect up to this and get some strength in the center. We're still okay here because we can capture at any time. And so I think I'm just going to look at making sure that he doesn't develop too large of a center, right? He's got some strength over here, he's got something over here, and so we need to make sure that this doesn't turn into too much. And so I'm going to try to get into the center a little bit while seeing if we can expand to the bottom side. So we're just going to play this knight's move here, which threatens to capture this stone on a larger scale than if we had just played J4, as well as threatens to break up the center to make sure that he doesn't get points here. Nobody's going to end up getting points in the center in this game, but he was the one who had the potential to do it. So we're just going to go in and try to break it up a little bit. And so he is looking to save this stone, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to play here, force him to connect up, and so he does go to connect up, and we'll play this to connect our stones here and to threaten to capture this. And since he did not save this stone, we will capture it. So here, I think he really needed to connect here because, it'll be a fight, but we're kind of floating in the middle in between his stones, and I think he'll be in an okay position for it. But in this case, he let us cut him off here, and so now we are fully okay. And so yeah, playing this looks like he wants to build up the center a little bit, and so we're going to do our same reduction method that we did earlier. We're going to shoulder hit right here, and this does a really good job of reducing the potential of groups that have third line stones or fourth line stones. Sometimes we play shoulder hits on fourth line stones as well. And so we will extend one more time, and if at any time he ignores these moves, then we start going in here and heavily reducing. But we do have to be careful when he plays a move like this, which looks to surround this group. So now, do we have the time to go and disrupt this more? And I don't think so. I think we need to make an attempt to get out to make sure that we're not surrounded. But he will eventually have to come back and play C8. But that's going to be after we make sure that this group is safe. I like this move. It makes it so this group can't extend nicely, and it takes a direction away from our group. We are going to attach to this stone, which is a method that we use to get strength for ourselves. Attaching this stone will make both groups stronger, but his stone was already in a good position. We don't care too much about this. This is really the focus. So I'm going to play this, make sure our group is nice and strong now, right? This was really the group that we cared about. And I mentioned if he lets us get C8, it's going to be really problematic for him. And so I'm just going to continue to make sure that this group is nice and safe before we do anything big with it. You have to remember this was just done to reduce this group from getting larger, and we've already been successful at that. So at this point, I think we're going to play here to try to connect our two groups up. If this group connects to a living group, then that group is alive and it is safe. And he does eventually come back to fix C8. Again, our friend is playing a very solid game today. So now that this looks pretty safe for us, we can start making sure that the center doesn't turn into points. And so we will keep on extending this way. Again, with the goal being just to make sure that this really turns into nothing. And we will play here with the same goal in mind. And he connects. We will take this Hane. And honestly, at this point, we are pretty much in endgame. And I've gotten a lot of requests to go over endgame stuffs, and so I'm not going to skip to the end here, and I'm going to go over what I see in endgame. So first, we're going to take this Atari. We're going to take this forced exchange, and now if he doesn't block at K17, he ends up dying there. This stone we don't care too much about. If he Ataris, we're able to come out and potentially go here. So looking at endgame, we want to find moves that are sente. And then preferably find moves that are double sente, which is sente for both players. There's one such move here at 10, T16. 9. Playing T16 really threatens to damage this and potentially kill the group. And so now we can push again. And he gets his Atari, we connect, but now he has to fix this, else he dies in the corner. So we get sente out of this. And so that is one of the first things you look for. If you can't find sente moves, then you want to find large gote moves. We can look at this monkey jump here. We can look at this monkey jump here. And I'm going to look at this one because this group is less developed. And so we're going to take this monkey jump. This one will end in sente because he has no stones on the second line here. And we will make sure to connect up. And then he plays his securing move. And this ends in sente for us. We have another move we can play. We can play this one. It's only 1 point, but it's sente. He can't let us push through. And so he blocks. And then we can play here. If he does not block here, then he's going to be in a lot of trouble. So we will take this as a sente move. And we can look at this monkey jump, but this one actually ends in gote because of this stone. And so instead I'm going to play a large second line move. And I'm going to play B13. This threatens to really undercut this group. And he does block. We will take our first line Hane because this is going to end in sente. We come back. And he has to protect. He does not protect. So we can play here to capture this stone. And so we're going to do that. And so we capture. And we connect. And now we need to be careful because if we play here, these two stones die. Which he does do. And so looking at this, this is 2 points gote. And so I think we've got larger moves than that. I kind of want to protect this cut because he can play here and then cut here. So I'm just going to make sure that these groups are connected so that when he plays here, this cut doesn't work anymore. And he goes to Atari that stone. We will connect. And we will block his group. So it's his turn. His turn to get sente. He is allowed to get sente moves as well. So we will play here. And so now we need to be careful. There's a little trap here. If we ignore this, he gets this Atari, and then he plays this to kill these stones. So to fix that, we are going to play here, which threatens to kill this stone. And now if he cuts and we connect, he can't play here because we'll get the capture, and if he pushes to Atari, we get to connect. So this connects this up while also threatening this stone. And so he does protect. And at this point, I'm going to play here. It's a large second line move. It threatens a monkey jump, so I expect that he will respond to it. Also, there's some potential for this group to live. I don't see how he would be able to live, but having this extra stone here will help ensure that that group dies. And so we will take this monkey jump now. And at this point, we truly are in the ends of endgame. We're going to be able to reduce this from either side, so he's not going to get many points here. This is going to get shored up, and that will be that. So at this point, I will take us to the end of the game because there's not too much to go over at the end of this one. So here we are at the end, and we ended up winning by 42 points. But our opponent played this game very well. He played very sharp at the beginning, and really the only reason he fell behind is we were able to outfight him at the beginning, which really isn't too fair for him. But yeah, a very impressive game for our friend. So let's take a look at the review and see what he could have done better. Okay, so here we are in the review. And I'm going to just try to focus on moves my opponent could have made, because you've already heard what I had to say about my moves. So everything is fine here, and again, I think he played all this very well. I don't see any big mistakes here at all. This looks perfectly good. I would be happy to be black on this board. And then this is fine as well. Again, I was really impressed with his sequence of plays here. This all looks great. At this point, I think it's best for him to potentially give up these two stones. He needed to either strengthen this group, or I think be okay with giving up these two stones. And it's a tough choice. I'm not sure which way I go with it, but we could look at playing this to get out, because we're not terribly strong, but then also White gets to go in this direction. So I can't fault him for this move. It's just when we play here, he probably needs to do something like this just to give up those two stones and be happy with taking a big corner and not really getting punished with this group. I think this is a perfectly fine outcome for black. But since he tried to save all the stones, right, that kind of breaks that rule. That he ends up getting in a lot of trouble. And as you saw, these stones ended up dying later in the game. So that's something I've brought up before. Often if you try to save all your stones, you end up losing a lot more than if you had just given them up. And this is a perfect example. He just needed to recognize that these stones weren't worth saving and force us to capture them in an awkward way. And again, this would have been fine. But so now we get in a little bit of trouble because we've got this white wall to fight against, and a weak group here. But honestly, he did very well, I feel, for this. And then even coming over here, this crosscut likely works. I'm not sure what we do to respond to this, because if he gets this Atari, we get to connect up here, and maybe this still works for white, but I don't think so. This looks problematic. But this is getting pretty. I'm not expecting a double-digit Q player to see something like this. Again, he did very well for a long time in this, but unfortunately put us in a situation where we had to either fight back or die. So here he recognized that his stones were pretty dead, and so he played this as a kind of as a peep to maybe try to save the stones, and this is all fine, except he's now making another group, and it looks like he's trying to save this stone now. And so now, instead of playing a big move on this board, like playing a 3-3, this stone isn't worth saving here, and he's putting more stones into it. I would suggest approaching this stone, either side, or 3-3 I think would be better than trying to do something here. Though this is a big move, but it's just tough because of the easy shoulder here. And this is just the side of the board. We still have an open corner. So again, I think one of these three approaches would have been larger. And then again, I mentioned that when we approach this, we usually want to play here. We can also look at either of these two points. Both of those will work very well in this situation. If he had chose to play here, a normal variation is just something like this. If he plays here, white will usually bump, and then black can decide if he wants the outside or if he wants the corner. So all of those would be fine. This doesn't have a really great follow-up. That's the only reason I don't like it. We still took the corner, and then he peeped and made a base, and I think this is all reasonable. This was a miss. I think he needed to make this exchange. Yes, this gets us some strength, but he is safe to jump out here. I think the corner was larger to protect. And then you saw how the rest of the game went. And at this point, there's really not too much black can do. This group's dead. A lot of points there, a lot of points in the corner here, a lot of points in the corner here. And we're going to be able to reduce the center because the center is just so hard to hold. But we do have one interesting thing, and I want to take you guys there to take a look at it. So we are here in the game, and black threatens this cut to cut our bamboo. We connect, and he plays here. And so my question for you is, now that we've played this move, and he has played here, do you find a nice sneaky tesuji on this board? And the hint that I'll give you is it's very relevant to the last move we played, which is this move. Can you find something that really turns this game around for us if we were behind? White is ahead here. I didn't end up playing it in the game because we didn't need it, but there's a fun little tesuji here. So that is my question for you. If you are white, where are you playing right here? Hope to hear your answers in the comment section. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed today's bus ride, and thank you for coming out for another ride in Struggle Bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.